Camera rolling, action.
So, the film opens with establishing shots of the hospital in which the film is going to be set. We're going to use the Princess Royal for this, and we're going to go and just take various shots from around the grounds. Each of these shots will last around 3 to 4 seconds, so the overall opening will probably be about 20 seconds, and we can have our titles during this time. After that, we're going to then move into the hospital, and the camera will be placed on top of the gurney, in which case we'll then see Santa's feet, although the audience is unaware of this, as he's being wheeled through the hospital doors and down the corridors. Then when he reaches his room, it will go and fade to white. After that, the scene will open again with lots of close-ups around the room in which he is, such as the heartbeat monitor, and we'll be able to hear the beeping of it as it goes on. After that, we're then going to have close-ups of his costumes, such as the boots, and later on we'll have the actual costume seen on the chair. After that, we're then going to have a close-up of the clock on the wall to give the audience a reference time of when it is during the day. Once we've seen them, we're then going to start having a tracking shot and it panning up Santa's body, just to so it's slowly revealed to the audience who this character is. And such, we will then do things like cut to the Santa's hand so you can see the cannula going into his hand. After that, we'll also intersperse this with other shots from around the room, maybe Christmas decorations and the calendar. And after that, we'll then go into an extreme close-up, so it highlights that this is the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. We will then continue with the tracking up of Santa's body, and when it gets to around the beard area, we'll cut to a close-up of his face. So even though this is clearly a Santa-like person, it isn't obviously aware that it is him just yet. After this, the Doctor will come in, and him and Santa will have an exchange in which the Doctor starts saying things like, you know, this isn't the first time this has happened, Mr. Claus. Remember last year when you fell off of your reindeer? Things like that, implying that Santa has a history of getting up to all sorts of hijinks around the Christmas period. This exchange will last for around 40 seconds. After that, Santa will get worried, and this is going to be obvious through uses of sound such as the increased heartbeat. And this will fade then into a news broadcast of which he is imagining the following day. And he's imagining the consequences of what's happened if he has to stay overnight in hospital and not able to deliver Christmas. The newscaster will say things like, you know, Santa was brought into hospital late last night and he's had to stay overnight. After this, they'll then call in their expert on Christmas, and they'll just generally start talking about Santa, and the way this is going to really affect the world and the possible consequences of him being left over in hospital, such as there may be riots outside. This whole thing will probably last for about maybe a minute or so. After this, we'll then move back to Santa, just for taking it back into reality, as he then starts to think of like the families and how it will affect them. From this, we will then go into another scene of a young couple waking up in the morning, getting all excited for their presents. As this is being set in a sort of fantasy land in where everyone knows that Santa exists, it will be believable without having to have children there. So, after the characters have expressed their sort of excitement for it being Christmas Day, we're then going to have a quick shot of them like walking down the corridor, and then that will cut to afterwards them as time manipulation of them just having arrived downstairs. Once here, they'll then see the newspaper which has been delivered through the door, which we're going to create as one of our props, and it will say a headline that, you know, there are no presents or whatever. Out of this shot, they'll then go through to the living room, in which case we'll then see them as they walk into the room, and we'll have a close-up of their shocked faces, although the audience will still not be knowing what they're looking at. After this, we'll then cut round to the other side of them, so we can see that although the Christmas tree is there, there are no presents. Once this is done, we'll then go and zoom in even further with an extreme close-up of the bottom of the Christmas tree, and to illustrate that there's nothing there. This scene in all will again last about 40 seconds. After this, we'll then cut back to the present, in which case we'll again have another shot of the clock to illustrate that time has passed and it's getting nearer to midnight. It's about 10 o'clock. We then cut to, again, a close-up of Santa's shocked face to show how worried he is. After this, the doctor will walk back in and again, they will start talking and discussing whether he is able to leave. The doctor will say that most of this alcohol that he has consumed, which caused him to be placed in the hospital in the first place, has pretty much gone through his system, so it's okay for him to leave, as he says, you're going to be okay. After this, we will then see his heartbeat slow down as he's getting more relaxed and he's looking very happy. We'll then have a shot of him getting dressed, maybe if we can have a sort of blind going around the bed and we can see him throwing out his gown and pulling in his Christmas costume. Once this, we'll then have an angle of Santa coming out all dressed up. He'll then walk towards the camera, and once there we'll cut, and then we'll begin again with him walking away as though he's just walked straight through it. The film will then end with Santa very triumphantly walking out of the hospital, and as he opens the doors, it will fade to white.
Cut!